Like cooking, everything has a recipe.
A set of instructions to follow in order to gain a certain result.
Music is no different.
Be it ingredients for a dish, a set list for an amazing show,
Or a release strategy for a successful launch.
these are all recipes.
Hi, we're your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brandon.
Come and join us in our kitchen as we go through the Music Maker's Cookbook.
Let's get cooking.
Welcome to the Music Maker's Cookbook, the podcast that helps you cook up recipes for success in the music industry. I'm Sean.
I'm Brandon.
Reading good books lately, Brandon?
No.
No?
Oh,
This is going to be a short pre-conversation conversation.
Here's my philosophy on books, right? So I very much go through this, like, I'm very into reading or listening to books. I do a lot of audiobooks since I drive a lot. I listen to books, right? During a certain time, I'll binge and I'll listen to a lot of them. And then I'll take like a really long break from them. And it's kind of like a cycle like that. And I'm currently on my break cycle. And I haven't had any interest in going back, even though I have like 5 or 6 books lined up. So when I'm ready to go back or there's a topic that comes up, I'm good to go. So I have not read anything lately, but there's stuff in the queue though. So I'm never dry, but I'm currently not doing that. And I probably should be, but my attention span is just not there. So it's like,
Fair
why
enough.
even listen to it if you're not going to learn anything about it? You know, you're not being productive. Like we kind of talk about that, you know, in an episode where it's like, you're doing something, but like, you're not really doing something, right?
Yeah, you're doing it to be busy, not to
Exactly.
actually gain or
and
make
it
process
look like,
in it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's currently where I'm at. So I'm not, sorry for a really bad answer, but have you read or listened to any good books lately?
Yeah, I'm currently reading a book about stress management. Can't think of the name of it right now. But I've been reading it kind of before bed.
Nice.
I've been trying to switch off of watching videos before going to bed to
Mhm.
like trying to read books before going to bed. I've been kind of stressed lately, so it's been a helpful book. For me
I would
to-
say that that bed book is very pertinent to your life right now.
Yeah, no, it's been very helpful for me to read. And so
Good.
far, I've gone through, because there's like 10 what they call life skills or tips to manage stress. And like this one, I've gotten through 2 of them. And so far, they've been helpful. Very
That's
basic,
good.
but very helpful.
Practical stuff.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
And then I've been listening to The Pumpkin Plan.
Yes, you told me that. You told me
Yes.
about that. I actually had that book and I just never listened to it.
It's
Isn't that sad?
The physical copy or on Audible?
Audible.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Listen, it's a good one. I'm definitely going to have to start doing more and more actionable steps with it because it's like, hey, you want to make progress with your business, this is what you got to do.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, maybe I'll give that one a listen to first thing because
Let me know when you do, because then we'll do an episode about it. Because he
Ooh.
talks about how it
Yeah,
relates
there
to
we go.
any business.
there's some motivation right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause he talks about how it relates to any industry, and we could definitely relate it to the audio industry for all the independent
Totally.
artists out
And
there.
his narration is really good on it. So,
It is.
So, yeah, I don't know why I ever turned it off. I think I ended up just getting more books, and it was like kind of like shiny object syndrome at the time. And I think I just clicked off of it. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like again, I go back to like if I'm not retaining anything from it at the time, then I'm
That's
just
not
gonna
the
put
time
it
to read
down. Yeah, exactly.
sense.
So I give myself a little bit of leeway, but I'll definitely that'll be the first one I think I listen to then because I've always wanted to, and I've been told good things about it, not only by you, but about a lot of podcasts too. So
Yeah. Well, part of the reason I brought that up is that the stress management book I'm reading and then the Pumpkin Plan book I'm reading are all about kind of planning and developing and setting forth like things you need to know before you really tackle life with stress and like, hey, I kind of need these tools to deal with it. And also like what tools I need to help improve my business. And what we're talking about today are things that you should know that are tools in your belt before you release your music as you go into it to make sure that you have an effective launch.
yeah.
We briefly talked about some of these topics in the past. We've talked about music distribution platforms. We've talked about release campaigns, like release strategies. That was episode 3, I think, of like the
Yeah, a
waterfall
long time
method.
ago,
Yeah. So there are some episodes where we talk about some of the details of this, but this is just a basic overview, 10 things that you need to know before you release your music to distribution platforms. You want to take us off?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right.
Number 1, you should budget for your release. I mean, this should really go before you start recording, or at least have like a faint idea of how much you want to spend on post-release. And why I'm saying it like that is because this should actually be separate from your recording and production budget. You should have a separate budget just for the release after. And this can be for things like marketing, post-production stuff like visuals, photography. Well, I guess that would be under visuals. Like ad campaigns, if you wanted to do those, really anything that goes into the the release of your song, you know,
Yeah.
or album. Album would be exponentially more expensive to do, you know, and it should be, you know, at that point, because it's a bigger project. You want a bigger return on that. More people hear it, right? But yeah, you should definitely have a budget in mind, though, and be prepared to spend a pretty decent amount of money on getting your song out there, because there's nothing like putting your song out, not having a budget for it, not spending any money on it, and then just throwing posts at the wall, hoping that someone finds it. And it can lead to a lot of disappointment in the long run, because you've worked hard on this up to this point. So that's my 2 cents about making a high enough budget to make it worth it.
Oh
right?
yeah, well, because promotion and marketing is an essential step in
Yes, it
the
is.
music process. It's not just record it, make it, put it out there, and they will come.
Right.
You have to put it in front of people who would potentially want to hear it.
Mhm.
And as we talked about in the past, there's 2 ways you can pay for that: one with money, one with time.
Yep.
So when you're talking about budgeting, not just how much money am I willing to put into this, but also how much time am I willing to put
Good
into
point.
this.
Yep.
Because you may have to invest hundreds of hours beforehand making all the materials that you need to make these pushes, and also preemptively being a participant in the groups that you want to then share your music in, where your ideal fan is located.
Mhm.
So that way when you put it out there, there's repertoire and they're likely to listen
Right.
and share your music around. But in terms of the monetary aspect, something that I know Hollywood does that I think is kind of a pretty safe general rule of things is that whatever whatever the budget of creating the art is, the marketing budget is usually the same as that.
Mhm.
So if it's $100 million movie, they're usually going to spend $100 million in marketing the
Yeah.
thing. That's kind of the rule of thumb, loosely, on how they do it. So
Interesting.
I've heard.
Okay.
So if you're going to budget $5,000 to get in the studio and get your album done, $5,000 in promotion,
Yeah.
I think is kind of a good loose way to start. Because if you're going to put that much money and time into making the art, and it matters that much to warrant that cost, then you should plan for the costs to get it out there. You know, actually do it justice once it's made, not just, I put $5,000 in, but now no one's listening to it. I put all this time and effort into it and all this money into it, but no one's listening to it. One, you're going to pay with time, but if you're going to pay with money, then that's a good rule of thumb to start with.
Yeah, definitely agree. And this isn't to like discourage you from like not making music, because like I know what Sean just threw out there, $5,000 to record, $5,000 to market can seem like a really daunting task. But this is something that you have to plan for and save for and allocate funds for. And this requires a lot of groundwork, because like Sean said, if you're not going to pay with money, you got to pay with time, you know, and that's playing out a lot. That's a lot of like street marketing, you know, and just getting yourself out there, lots of social media posts and just being active at all times. So you're going to pay in one way or another, but yeah, it's going to be expensive. It's just going to be expensive. That's just what it is, you know, but as long as you budget for it and it's not a surprise to you, you know what to expect going in. Oh, yeah. Just saying right now. So rip off the Band-Aid, number one, right?
And this is where bands have a leg up over solo artists, because they can divvy up the costs and they can divvy up the work. If you're a 5-piece band, all of a sudden $10,000 for the release of an album with recording and marketing turns into $2,000 per person.
Yeah, great point.
A lot, but way more manageable.
Way more
And you
manageable.
can also separate the cost investment too, and you have potential specialization in each of these things. Like if the drummer's really good at graphic design, you can just have him do all the stuff. If the bassist is really good at photography, he can take all the promo shots. So that's where a perk of being a group really comes from monetarily and the time investment wise.
Yep, absolutely.
Second thing you need to do before you, if you mind if I jump in the next one. The second thing you need to do, second thing you need to do before you release your music is plan your marketing strategy. We just talked about how important it is, how budgeting it is incredibly important. But now that you have the budget, you kind of have to plan it within those confines. Are you going to be focusing on social media? Do you have an email newsletter, like an email campaign you can put out? Any other channels you can do? Do you want to do a press tour? Are you going to try to get on radio? Are you going to work with another promotional agency to help promote your music? Or are you going to do it all yourself? Like all this stuff is incredibly important on how you are going to get it out there.
Yep. And this one's kind of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Do you budget first? Do you do the plan of the marketing strategy first? I think it could go either way, honestly. You could get creative about it. You say, hey, we want to do all this for our marketing strategy, so let's price all this out and go from there and see what it costs, right? And see what we can do. Or you can go, I only have this to spend, so I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible and do things that I know will matter to my core demographic of people that I'm trying to market to, right? So you can I think you can go both ways with this at some point. I think it's a lot more fun to plan out your marketing strategy first and then see the dollar amount, because you can dream big and then you can work backwards from big, right? So that's personally the way that I would do it. Sean, would you do it the other way?
It's funny you say that, because I would completely not do it that way.
Gotcha.
I would set the budget first and then kind of fit what works within that confines. Because otherwise, as you mentioned, you are going to be creative. You are going to shoot for the moon, and the project is going to balloon in terms of costs. And then you're now thinking, crap, what do I have to get rid of to make it fit my budget? Instead of, okay, this is what's most important. This is really important. Okay, this is going to cost $2,000 or whatever. Great. I'm using the $5,000 example. We're probably gonna stick with that throughout the rest of this episode, just for some round numbers.
Easy math.
So like, okay, cool. Well, this is gonna take $2,000 for this radio campaign. Okay, cool. I have $3,000 left. Well, what's also important? What can I use the $3,000 for? And then as you go down and down, then you start being creative. Like, okay, we have $200 left. What can I do for $200 that is going to be like really creative and really helpful? Like, and you mentioned like the guerrilla marketing things, or getting some friends involved, or maybe you can even do like a prize giveaway or something for your fans to like, hey, you pre-save the album, enter this contest to win a bunch of stuff from the launch of the music, so like a vinyl, a t-shirt, and a hat or something, and then you can spend the money to get small batches of those materials to make it like a promotional thing. Like, then you can start being creative within the confines. Totally. I'm a believer that limitations actually breed more creativity than limitless possibility. So that's why my brain is personally like, no, have the budget first, limit yourself first, and then be creative within that.
Totally.
But that's just me.
Sure. Fair enough. Like I said, kind of two sides of that coin. You know what I'm saying? Like, what came first, chicken or the egg? You can do either one. See, I mean, you can try doing Sean's way first, and then on the next album, do it your way, you know, or my way or whatever. Totally up to you with how you guys think. I think overall, you know what I'm saying? And then like I added this one under it too. I think this one's kind of important too. This was like a main key point that I had, but I was like, this one kind of falls under the marketing strategy. Is that you got to create high quality posts and visual content and just overall quality content in all other forms of media. This includes music videos, lyric videos, and like just any visual content that you can throw up on social media.
Lyric videos, please just make lyric videos. There's I have to talk to so many artists and they still don't make lyric videos. You need to make lyric video.
Yeah. I think that's like baseline these days. It's lyric videos.
Yeah, it's the simplest way to get people to learn your lyrics and get invested in the story of your song, because they can read it. Despite being in the audio industry, I'm going to go on a quick tangent real quick.
Sure.
Sorry you brought this up. I'm kind of hijacking it real quick.
Please go.
But despite being in the audio industry, visuals are how we really interface with the world around us. That is the largest part. That is the most important sense to us as humans. The visual aspect of it is incredibly strong and a visceral response to it. We love, like, if you go to a live show, oftentimes it's not the sound that you're going there for. It's for the visuals and the energy that come along with it. We like seeing pretty things. We like having things visualize what's happening. So having professional photos for your posts, having short videos. I mean, the rise of TikTok and short form video and how big video is as a whole really does showcase how important the visual aspect is of it.
Yeah.
So what I've actually been doing something lately where I've been kind of saving. I've been scrolling through TikTok for a purpose, and I've been saving all the artist shorts that really stand out to me as either this is really cool and creative, but mainly they take very, very little effort, but get a big reaction. Yeah. So I do want to kind of talk about that later on, so keep an eye open for that. But there's some really cool things you can do that don't take a lot of time. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. I mean, make videos, make a connection to your audience, make a connection to the music. I think everybody usually gets the music video one down. Like, everybody wants to do a music video at some point, and be prepared to spend a lot of money on that. Just saying. Yeah. Just saying, because that's going to be expensive, and that will cut into your overall budget too. So make sure your budget's pretty decent. Yeah.
Or be creative about it. We have an episode about budget. Or be creative
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Where we talk about you can contact a local community college or a college and get the video students to help you out for
here's the thing though. Here's the thing. Don't make it look like shit. I have to say that. because
want it to
I've
look like
seen
shit.
no,
So it has to be
'cause-
purposeful.
No, because like I've seen some bad music videos. You would not want your music videos even looking like that either. So, do your best to make it look the best that you can, and hire somebody to do that, and invest in that. Just saying, it's bad. It's bad
What if
out
my
there.
band name is Shitface Trash?
I mean, at that point, then you can do it. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
There's always
an
outlier.
I have to be very staunch in that because I've seen some things where I'm like, yeah, no, we have to at least have some sort of baseline, and that goes with recording too.
Yeah, there's stylistic degradation versus just shit.
Exactly.
But that's another topic.
Yep, 100%. Next one is set a release date. This one is pretty interesting actually because a lot of people set a very soft release date.
Yes.
And we'll move it. It's a very movable release date, and like that can be okay. But a lot of the time, you're going to want to try to stick to it the best that you can because that holds you accountable. Like Sean said, you kind of work within like a limited amount of time that forces you to get the work done and be as creative as possible in the times that you need to be creative and actually get your music out into the world. This helps you stay accountable for yourself as well, especially if you publicize the release date.
Yes.
If you push back your release date after you publicize it, it'll probably be people are going to be like, what the fuck, dude? You know,
what the fuck, dude?
I mean, how many times does a video game get announced, right? And then the date gets pushed back right on the release date. We don't see it happen in music a ton unless it's like a concert or something or like a show. It's like, hey, we have to push this back because of logistical issues, right? Try to stick to it though, because your fans will hold you accountable for it, and this will help you stay accountable with everything else that you're doing leading up to this too.
Well, here's the thing: if you have your marketing strategy set aside, then you should have all of your music done before you even think about your release.
Absolutely,
date.
I agree.
Where you get in trouble is when you make your release date public before your project is complete, because then you're just scrambling to get the stuff out before the release date so you can hit that deadline. Crunch time, and that's when things are rushed and not polished, and you're not able to promote it as well as you possibly could.
Yep.
It's okay if you wait for everything to be done.
Yeah.
And you can give like the studio engineer or the people in your band or whoever you're hiring to make things for you a deadline that's earlier than the release date. The release date is your deadline, but you need to have deadlines that line up before that, so that way you have all the materials ready at least 2 weeks before the release date. And then also, if you make the release date a date that's important to you, that has a story behind it, that also aids you for like marketing campaigns and whatnot. Like I have a client right now who's a huge fan of the Beatles, especially Paul McCartney. His announcement date for his upcoming album, he announced it on Paul McCartney's birthday. And that was part of the story of him announcing it.
Yeah.
And it makes it interesting to people who are not only a fan of your music, but also are his music, but also a fan of Paul McCartney's music, which is kind of the clientele, not the clientele, I'm thinking business terms. That's the fan base that he wants to listen to his music.
Yeah.
He wants other McCartney fans to listen to stuff that he makes. So if you make it an interesting event or a specific date, then you can use that in your marketing strategy as well.
Great idea. Yeah, definitely have some patience, I think, with this one, because like Sean said, I think ideally you should have all your marketing stuff, at least most of your marketing stuff. Obviously you can keep creating as time goes on, but you should have most of your marketing stuff kind of squared out, fleshed out. You should also have the song done or the album done before you release or before you announce the release date, so that way you know there are no surprises at the end of the day, right? No surprises. And like Sean said too, you can kind of manipulate not people, but you can kind of manipulate. You can kind of manipulate people them. Being like, "Hey, this is my deadline," but actually have the deadline be 2 months from now, right? That way, you know this will be done by here, and now I can work on other things leading up to the release date.
It also gives you wiggle room.
Exactly. It's like insurance. It's like having insurance.
Yeah. Yep. So something does happen, and it does get pushed back a couple of weeks in order for the album to get finalized. You have 2 months. Yeah. So you still have a month and a half to put everything together.
Absolutely.
So I completely always give yourself extra time.
Yeah. And just be very communicative to whoever you're working with too. Next one is get your music professionally mastered. The reason why I didn't really make a big emphasis on that is because I'm going to tell a story, is that I just got done mastering a project for a band. They're awesome to work with, super fun. More
music
like
sounds great too.
Yeah,
I've heard it.
Yeah, music like kind of like party, kind of rock vibes, but also just like rock vibes, like Beck or something, kind of cool. And we just got finished, and they told me back in May, we were like, okay, cool. This is their release date. I'm like, all right, sick. I know as a mastering engineer, right? I don't label myself as one of those, but I do mastering. But I know that their deadline is this specific date, right? Which was June 29th, yesterday, actually. I was like, they need at least 2 weeks to upload the track, right? The album, at least 2 weeks. DistroKid recommends 3 weeks. A lot of places recommend 3 weeks. But I'm like, they need the time, and they had already planned on releasing this at this date. So there was no telling them push it back or whatever. I'm like, cool, we're going to meet the deadline, right? So I told them, I'm like, this is our deadline to get everything done by then, right? And we did, and we finished it in plenty of time, and it all worked out nicely, right? So that's the importance of setting a deadline, even if it's like a phantom deadline, right?
Yeah.
Now going to the mastering side of things, you need to get your stuff mastered properly. This just makes the overall sound of your album, of your song, just more polished at the end of the day. Yes. Not only that, but for coherency purposes over an album too. Like if you want consistency over your album, and not everybody's like this, but if you want each song to sound like it's the same across the board,
it belongs together.
Yes, you got to get the mastering done to do that, because that is one of the most important parts of mastering is that that synchronous loudness across the entire spectrum. Now, I've heard professional, very big artists like Drake or whatever, they're kind of getting away from that, right? Because they're having different mixers on there, so which usually means different kind of loudnesses, whatever, blah, blah, blah. This all depends on what you want to do, but in either case, though, you still need a mastering engineer at the end of the day. And mastering can be decently expensive, or it can be done through AI. And like, I don't like the AI personally stuff. I don't think it sounds all that great, but it can get you from point A to point B.
It can, yeah. It's better than nothing. Definitely upload a mixed track.
Yeah.
But perks of working with a mastering engineer who actually has interest in your music and has invested especially in your genre is that they're going to want to work with you to emphasize things about your song that should be emphasized, like highlight your music properly, not just in general genre terms, but specifically your song. If the vocals are more important, like the lyrics are super important, and let's say for this example, the band mixed it themselves, they're familiar with the lyrics. In my experience, because I've mastered a lot of songs that have been mixed and produced by the band. In my experience, the vocals are usually too quiet.
Right.
Because they're familiar with the lyrics and they can hear them because they're filling it in their head while they listen to it to make sure the mix is good. So if you have somebody who can specifically be like, hey, this needs to be adjusted because this is the strong suit of your song, they're able to do that. And they can even have those conversations of like, what's the most important thing of your song? What are you trying to highlight? Is this like really warm and full? Is it clear and crisp? Is it just wide but kind of thin? Like, what are you trying to do? Modern, vintage, what are you going for? And those conversations and working with a person allows for the right things to be emphasized in your music.
Absolutely.
Whereas, you go through AI things, it will get the job done. It will standardize it for the genre. It'll boost the lows so it matches most like the average. It'll cut the highs or boost the highs or whatever it needs to do. And it will sound better 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100. But it's not going to emphasize your music and make your music stand out in a way that's unique to you.
Right.
If you're mixing it to be your sound, you want it to be mastered to also be an emphasis of your sound.
Right.
I also want to say that something that I recently got reminded of, when you upload a song, a lot of places like DistroKid or CD Baby or TuneCore will be like, do you want us to master it for you?
Yep, they will.
Yeah. If you have your song already mastered, do not click this option.
Yep.
It'll throw it right in front of your face, and if you're clicking through like yes, get this going, you just want to post it, especially if you're rushing the deadline and you're not reading everything, then you may double master it, which is going to do nothing.
Right.
It's just going to actually get rid of everything that you did. So if you work with a mastering engineer and they deliver those files between -11 and -14 on UFS or whatever the shit you want to categorize it by, don't do those options.
Yep. Yeah.
I only say that because I was recently on a phone call with the client. He's like, hey, this is saying like we're going to average the volume
Yeah.
for distribution. I'm like,
Yep,
that's
it will.
mastering. Don't click on it.
Yep. Yeah, because it'll try to throw you off with like trying to optimize your loudness, right? I think that's what DistroKid uses as terminology.
Yep.
And then you'll see an extra charge. So you'll most likely won't want to click on it, because you're like, damn, now I'm going to get charged an extra fill in the blank, for this upload.
Nobody got time for that.
But it's also like, it makes you question yourself, and it's like, oh, is my release prepared for this? And it's like, yes, it is going to be totally fine.
That's exactly what happened.
Yep.
He called me. He's like, am I good? I'm like, you're good.
Yep. You're totally good. And it's funny because DistroKid will actually tell you during the process of uploads, at least they used to, like maybe sometime last year, but they'll send you an email that'll say, your song is optimized for, uploads. We don't need to do anything to this. It's like, well, I mastered it. So like, I know exactly, but sometimes it'll kind of reaffirm you too. So I don't know if they'll send you that same email though, if you get their service done. I have no clue, but it's an option. And you can make the decision for you, whether that's right for you or not. By the way, I meant to say Jet, not Beck, for what they sound like. The band sounds like.
Okay.
Yeah, Jet.
Okay.
Jet, yeah. Like that cold, hard bitch song, or whatever. Yeah. They jam. So, okay.
Number 5.
Number 6.
5.
You're right. I skipped. Prepare your artwork and your branding.
What does that mean?
Your artwork.
I would say most of your branding.
I mean, I would say for this purpose though.
Are you talking about artwork? I'll talk about branding.
Deal.
And then we'll have a fight to see which one's more important.
I'm thinking like in terms of like the song itself. Make sure you have some good artwork that goes along with what you're releasing. If you have a whole thematic theme going on or with your band or something, like make sure that it fits the criteria of that, and make sure that it's actually pretty good looking too. I've seen some really bad cover art as well that don't fit the branding of the band or album or whatever, right?
Make a quick comment real quick.
Sure.
Something I've been seeing a lot of, because I do a lot of folk work, and something I've been seeing a lot of folk artists do lately is hire tattoo artists to make the album art.
It's a great idea.
It looks so cool.
It's a great idea.
It's so cool.
Yep.
So if you're a folk artist and you're looking for an idea for album art, once you have like your colors and like a concept for your art album, see if there's any tattoo artists who would be willing to do it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. I think you can also make your own too, in terms of like, there are tools out there that'll help you do your own. So you don't need to necessarily hire anybody, but strong but. We can all tell when you use Canva these days. We know what the Canva templates look like these days, okay? So don't go Canva core on us and make it your own, okay?
Canva core.
Yeah, okay? Just saying right now. Like Canva core might be good for social media posts, if you're like a corporation or something and you need something quick. But this is your art that you're doing, right? Just make it your own. Just saying.
We need to make that a shirt.
Yeah, Canva core.
Canva core.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just being an asshole. But
no, I think it's awesome.
I think Canva core. I like, because I know people that use Canva, and I'm not saying
everywhere.
that. And it's like,
we've recommended Canva.
I use Canva.
Yeah,
like almost like at least every week. I was gonna say every day. It's like every week, right? So
I use Canva for this podcast.
Yeah,
for the album,
but
the podcast art.
You couldn't tell though, because you changed it enough, right?
It wasn't a template.
You didn't rely on a template.
It wasn't a template.
That's kind of like what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
I'm trying to defend myself because I can hear everybody get mad at me right now. So yeah, just make it your own. Sean, go into branding before I put my foot in my mouth even more.
One of the great things about Canva is that you can set up a branding template.
He really hit me with that.
No.
Damn.
But no, I think branding is honestly, I think it's a super strong way to start because it gives you kind of a baseline foundation of everything should tie back to this. It should be this font consistent across anything you make. The album art should have this font. The promotional tool should have this font. The poster should have this font.
Totally.
The same thing with the color scheme. Like these are our 2 primary colors. These are 2 tertiary colors, and then here are our supporting colors that you can use sparingly throughout the rest of it. If you have a consistent visual identity throughout, like a foundation planned, your brand planned, it makes any sort of other creational aspect much easier.
Yep.
As I kind of hinted earlier, if you are hiring somebody to do your album art and you can give them the write-up that is the brand of your album, what it's about, what the story is, the emotion of it, like everything that goes behind it, the sound, the vibe you're going for, plus all the colors that you want that help support it, that gives them a huge leg up when they're creating something for you that you have has a much higher chance of fitting in with your aesthetic. And a easy way to do branding, which we've talked about in one of our early episodes, is make a Pinterest board for your album.
Yeah.
Just kind of scroll through Pinterest, search up a couple terms of the vibe, the general vibe that relates to your sound and your album. If you're going rock, a bunch of images that relate to that high energy thing. If you're going kind of cozy, that kind of stuff, really folky, usually some fall kind of things. And as you start collecting them and putting all these images together, once you have a couple dozen or so, you can start looking through them and thinking like, oh, okay, there's a lot of like light oranges in this, and then like a little bit of green, and then like I see there's a lot of blues in these images that represent this. And it will help you come up with a color scheme for your branding.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, once you have that foundation, it allows everything else to call back to it and make decisions much easier when you are in the creation aspect of it in Canva.
Oh my God.
But no, as I mentioned, once you have these things too,
Yeah.
Canva does have a brand design suite that it will preset all the colors.
It's like a brand kit or something. Yeah,
exactly. A brand kit. It'll preset the images, the colors, and the fonts that you use. So anytime you create something new through that platform, it has that. Now, most other creation platforms have that options where you can set aside certain kind of branding kits and whatnot. So whatever you use, definitely figure out how that functions so you can use it whenever you're creating anything new. It just makes it a whole lot easier. Yeah, that's why I think branding is more important. Also, branding does relate to how you dress. Fashion is a huge part of this industry.
Oh, totally.
We mentioned how important visualization is. That's where I think one of Taylor Swift's strongest suits is the fashion aspect of it. Because even when she wasn't on stage, she would dress appropriate to her album.
Right.
So every paparazzi picture was what related to her music in the era. So if somebody just saw it on the shelf on a magazine or scrolling online, they would know, oh, this artist makes this kind of music, most likely. So that's another thing you can kind of keep in mind of once you have your branding set up, you can let it affect your wardrobe as well. So that way you represent it on and off the stage, in and outside of your music.
Hell yeah, dude. Sweet. I don't have anything to add to that. That's great.
Cool.
Nice job.
We'll add to it by telling us what number 6 is.
Number 6 is choosing the right distribution platform. We have gone over this ad nauseum on episode 55, 4, 3, somewhere around there. 54?
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
We know our podcast.
You can go and like check out that episode if you want to learn more about specifics. We don't go over every single distribution platform. That would be almost damn near impossible to fit.
But we
in
do
one
link to an
podcast.
article that does.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So you can go find out which one is actually right for you. We've mentioned DistroKid today, and Sean is a big advocate of CD Baby. Correct?
That's just the one I use.
That's the one he uses. Yep. So, and you can go check out those and decide for yourself what is right for you. They all have benefits and drawbacks. It just depends on the volume that you put out and how much you're willing to pay and some of the services that you might need along with it. So definitely go check that out. And then there's some hidden stuff in there too, but we'll leave that for the episode to discuss for you.
Yeah, this is an overview one. If you want to deep dive into which one you should be choosing, which there is always one that's better for you than the others. So definitely do a deep dive into that and make some choices, look into it before you decide. Not just, oh yeah, my buddy uses DistroKid, so I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
May not be the best for what you're looking for.
Right.
So just do that.
Yep. 100%. Number 7, understanding copyrights and royalties. This
is a hard one.
This one's a really tough one. But we're going to try to simplify it for you guys. Royalties, split sheets for collaborations and for your own band. Do this ahead of time. Agree on percentages ahead of time and have it written out and everybody understand it. Get it laminated. Get it looked over by a lawyer. Do whatever you need to do to make sure that this is squared away so that way there's no disagreements at the end of the project, because like this can really break up a band, right? Once finances get into it, it becomes extremely messy to deal with, right? So get this all squared away up front. Royalties also, I'm going to actually jump to this one, Sean. I know we have it under D for this, so
jump around.
Right?
This is yours, man.
We're going to go to register everything with a PRO, which is a performance rights organization, and this will help collect performance royalties, right? So since we're on the topic of royalties, might as well mention this now. There are a couple different ones: ASCAP, BMI, and SEA.
CSAC.
Yeah, CSAC. I don't know if I've ever even heard of that one up until now.
Or have I?
Yeah. So we're going to stick with ASCAP and BMI for this one. I don't have a recommendation for you. You're just going to have to go and research these for yourself. Some of them do have benefits. I know ASCAP has interesting benefits. Like you can get like some money off of like some health insurance plans and stuff through them and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Like they actually have some pretty decent benefits. I know BMI has, BMI has some benefits too. But I've had
And
BMI before.
we're not talking about body mass index.
That's correct. That's correct.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, right. Because when you type in BMI on Google, that's what it's going to give you is body mass index. You're actually going to have to search BMI PRO, right? So,
pro BMI.
Yep, these are actually contracts. So I think you're tied into these for 5 years from the date of which you register with them, and then you can go switch to the other one. But you can't be in both at the same time, I don't believe. So, definitely do your research on PROs. We should do a whole episode on PROs in the future. We
definitely should.
Because they're really important.
That one's going to take some planning, though.
It's going to definitely take some planning, a lot of research, but I wanted to mention that now for royalty
Just
purposes.
Like this episode that took a lot of planning.
That's right.
Yep.
The next one is understanding copyrights. And copyrights get a little interesting. I have a link right here to copyright.gov/engage/musicians. That's going to be where you can find the most information because it directly deals with our U.S. listeners and the U.S. government itself, because all copyrights are done through the U.S. government. If you pay for copyrights anywhere else, then that is a scam and don't do it. So that is where you can get your actual presented registered copyright is through the government or through the United States Copyright Division, whatever. I don't know. Bureau. I have no fucking clue. But I do want to mention this, though. I'm also not a lawyer. But I do want to mention this, that there is actually natural copyright at the time of creation of your piece, right? So it's not a necessary thing to get your stuff copyrighted, in my opinion. But it's like extra protection if you wanted to protect it further. That's where a lot of people kind of get it mixed up a little bit. They think you have to do this. You don't have to do it because there's a natural copyright. But the natural copyright won't always hold up in a court of law.
Correct. You have to have things in place that help prove that the creation was originally yours and all the dates behind it.
Exactly.
And it can get kind of complicated.
Yep.
And it can get kind of messy, especially if it's been like a couple of years and like, well, I need to get the session so that I can prove that no, it was recorded at this date at this time and I was the original person or whatever.
Yep.
Well, then you got to find the engineer you worked with. Hopefully they have the files backed up from their session. So it can get messy. You have to make sure you have a paper trail just to be safe, or you can apply through with this.
Exactly.
But yeah, as you mentioned, whenever you create something, you do just have a natural copyright.
Exactly. And it actually explains that on this page too, that we'll link to you to, exactly what that process is and how much it costs to. If this is something you do want to go with, you should also include this in your release budget as well.
Yes.
Copywriting should be its own kind of line or head. So, yep. So that's good for number 7.
Number 8 is optimize metadata. Metadata is all the things inside the file of your music that identify what the file is. So that includes things like the artist name, the song title, the genre, any sort of tagging that you can put inside of it.
Yep.
There are ways you can add in your ISRC code into the file itself, so that way you always have it attached to the file. So if it ever gets taken down for every reason or whatnot, you don't have to like search around papers to make sure you find it. You can just open up the file again, find your ISRC code, and re-upload it under the same code so that it gets all of its views back and whatnot. Metadata can get complicated or it can be basic depending on what you necessarily need it to do.
Yep, absolutely.
If you want to be fun, you can also embed images in metadata.
Yeah, which is really fun.
Like a little bit of an Easter egg for your fans to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's some cool things you can do with it. But it's just important that that information is there so that whenever anybody gets that file, there's that direct proof and link back to you that you own it, that it's your file, that you're the one that created it. Yada yada.
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not as easy to do as it is with photography, because when you take a picture, all that metadata is automatically embedded in there, which is really cool. I hope like there's going to be some sort of thing like that in the future. I don't know how they would implement that. I'm not smart enough to come up with that, but it'd be really cool to have something like that, for audio. Whether or not that would even be necessary is a different story too. But I think it would be kind of cool. That's a little side tangent of the photography thing. But even the photography thing has where it was shot at, with the location, with the coordinates on there. Really cool stuff. So I want to add that in there for our photography fans because I think that stuff's really cool. But otherwise, metadata, it's definitely, it can be complex, but it's definitely not as complex as the name entails. Metadata sounds scary.
It does.
It's really not too bad at all. But just make sure that everything is optimized to fit with whatever you're releasing at the time that you're releasing it, and keep track of things. Even with your ISRC codes, I want to go into this too real quick. Write them down somewhere and keep them in a safe storage place just in case. You never know what will happen in the future. I've talked to a band before where they were under this manager, right? And this guy was just uploading demos of the songs as finals to the distributor. So he was releasing them for the band without the band's permission. And now they can't get a hold of the manager anymore. They don't know if they can get into their distributor accounts because he was managing all that and they can't get a hold of them. I was like, if you want to re-release these songs, we need those ISRC codes because it's already been released out to the public. And then not only that, but that'll also help keep track of streams and all that stuff too, right? So I'm like, next time, once we get back into this account, because we'll try to get into the account the best that we can, we got to write these down so that way we don't lose them. So definitely keep track of your ISRC codes after you upload too. Yes. We just want to put that out there as well.
No, that's so true.
Yeah.
Yes. Moving on. The next thing that you need to do, number 9, when you're about to release your music, is start building anticipation.
I thought you were gonna do a really fun intro and like really draw it out and build anticipation up to number 9.
Nah.
I was waiting for it.
You know what? Building anticipation for this one was?
What?
Items 1 through 8.
Ooh,
that's the finger amount.
Mic drop. What drop this mic?
Okay. It's a Sennheiser. I don't care. But yeah, no, building anticipation, get people interested in your release. This is why we mentioned you should have all of your stuff done before you announce your release date. So that way you can start releasing things beforehand that allow people to access it, use it, and build anticipation for when the full project drops. Things like putting a 30-second clip of the song or a minute clip of the song on platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and whatnot for them to utilize in content creation before the album drops. That helps build hype for it because people are now engaging with it and are familiar with it. Now they're looking forward to the full song. Things like countdowns or behind the scenes content, updates through an email newsletter, different discounts, or here's a preview, or hey, a week before here's the demo of this one song that's coming out on what's it called? The release platform for that musicians get 100% of the royalties on Fridays. Bandcamp.
Bandcamp.
Yeah. Or it's like, hey, a week before we release a demo every other day, building up only on Bandcamp. Things like that that just allow for more excitement as it builds up to it. There's a reason. I mean, this usually goes into the marketing strategy as well, but there's a reason that big movies and video games and any sort of media out there have marketing campaigns like trailer videos and behind the scenes things and press tours where artists will go around and promote the movie beforehand because it gets people excited about it.
You know what's funny is that your comment is so true though. Everything leading up to this point has built anticipation. We've gone through 8 points prior to this. And oftentimes, this is the one that people skip to right away.
Yes.
Right away. Go. I'm going to build anticipation. I'm going to tell everybody I'm doing this, and skips 1 through 8. And I want everybody to take notice that we have been through 8 different topics at this point, with topics that could go into subtopics. And we have now just gotten to telling people about the album or about the single. There's a lot more legwork that goes behind the scenes up to this point. And I think if you're ignoring everything up to this point, then you're setting your release up for failure. For the most part, sure, you can strike lightning strikes. It happens. Yes. It's very rare though. Lightning also usually doesn't strike twice. That is more rare, right? But I'm just saying that up to this point, though, if you haven't done your due diligence through 1 through 8 with all the underlying subtopics and subgenres of these points, then you are setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Just saying. Or disappointment. Or both. I don't know. However you look at it, right? Not saying that you couldn't be successful, like I just said, but look how far along we are. Got to do everything else. Got to do everything else. So I wanted to put that out there and illustrate that we're this far into the episode and we are now just talking about building up the release for it.
No, you're right.
Building up the anticipation, the hype, telling people about it, Yeah.
And the building the anticipation doesn't stop at release date. It's not the 2 weeks, the 3 weeks, the month, the 2 months beforehand, however long you have to promote this release.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop when they pre-save the song and they listen to it day one. No, you have to continue building anticipation for it for at least as long after the song comes out, but honestly throughout your career until you have the next major drop. There should always be some stuff going on to get people's attention back to the music, because that's where you want them. You want them to listen to the music and being a part of the music and the movement and being the community that your fan base is now going to be forming.
Right.
It's not just, hey, listen to my song. Hey, listen to my song. Thanks. Go by. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yep.
Then it's radio silence. You have to keep doing callbacks, really special things that relate to it, even like 6 months, a year after the album comes out. Keep sprinkling out some behind the scenes stuff.
Yep.
Like some hidden write-ups or tagged articles on a release date or resubmit to other articles or talk about, hey, we just got added to this playlist. There's I forget who the artist, what her name is, but she has this really hilarious series on TikTok where it's artists can see the names of the playlists that their songs are added to.
Oh, okay.
And she will go through and she'll read the funny names
That's cool.
of the playlist that her song has been added to.
Yeah.
And it keeps people thinking, like, one, it's just fun, it's entertaining because you have like things like music I power walk to, or like just like weird names like that. So it's entertaining, but also makes people think like, oh, I wonder what this song is that's added to it. Let me check it out.
Yeah.
And it's constantly marketing and building anticipation for what the song is.
And then adding on top of that, the fans that are watching this, they're also like, well, I want to be featured on a video. So they're going to go out of their way and make a playlist and come up with different names too, right?
Exactly.
So then all of a sudden you're getting this weird content creation that you never even thought was possible, right? With people just making either like funny playlists or, you know, just people adding it to their playlist, you know, and having embarrassing ass names for them.
Yep.
Right. Very cool stuff. That's really unique. That is really unique. I'm going to have to go find some videos and watch them. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
If next time I see one, I'll send it.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
All right. The final thing, number 10. What are some ways to build anticipation, or where should you send them to in order to get that hype kind of going? Playlists, blogs, any sort of promotional thing. Reach out to curators, bloggers, whatever, to get your song featured, to get write-ups done on it. To get it put on radio stations, to get interviews. Jinx.
Damn it.
And that allows for that anticipation to build. It gets your name out there. And people who are already invested, you can add these things to like a newsletter or make posts about it. Like, hey, if you want to hear me talk about the third song on the album more in depth, check out this interview that I did.
Yeah.
And people who are already interested in the album will go over there, and that just gets them more anticipating what the whole drop is going to be, because now they're slowly getting more information. Waiting for that big release. And then once it is coming out, boom, you're on a bunch of different platforms. You got blog posts, you've got posts about it, people relating to it, tags. That's going to help with your SEO. If someone searches you or searches them, that's going to help you come up. It's going to more validate what you're doing online. Win, win, win across the board.
Yeah, and if you were like, what the fuck is SEO? What did Sean just say? Go check out episode 55. Is that what it was?
I don't know.
I think it was. I think it was 55. Was it 53? Damn it. So close.
Actually, might have been 40, like 9 or something. Anyways, who cares?
Shit.
Check out episode on SEO.
No, I mean, this is great though, because this will, oh, man, why is it great?
This is great because silence.
Damn, why is it so good? Go back real quick. I think one of the most...
Are you telling me to go back in editing, or are you telling them to go back?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. Ready?
Go.
Okay. I think one of the most underrated things that people often don't search out is interviews, because like people make the content for you at this point. And what I mean by that is that you could reach out to a podcast or whomever that might be looking for like a guest, and they're already editing the podcast, right? They're already producing the podcast. All you have to do is go on there and talk either about what they want to talk about, which can be great because people can learn more about you and your opinions, and you can kind of like scale your music towards a certain demographic at that point, target demographic, or you can actually talk about your music. It's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
As long as you're just out there just talking to people. Not only that, you talk to people who are making the podcast, all of a sudden they know somebody who knows somebody, and then you're going over there, right? So it's a great networking opportunity, and I think it's a very underutilized tool. It's hard to find. It is hard to find sometimes, but as long as you're doing your research and you're just kind of like going through Instagram or Google or whatever the case may be, and you're looking for these maybe smaller podcasts or bloggers or vloggers or whomever, and try to get in contact with them to talk more about your music or whatever they want to talk about, this can aid so much in content creation for you, and it doesn't take much to do. It just takes your time. That's
Yeah.
all it does. That's all it takes.
Because also once you're on
yeah.
these things, if it's a video podcast as well or whatnot,
Mhm.
you can ask them, hey, can you send me over the video podcast so I can clip
Right.
it and make
Exactly.
shorts
Mhm.
about it myself, and you can start. That's content that you can start putting
Yep.
on your platform.
Yep. Because then you can clip with your music under it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden your music is the background music for whatever you're talking about. Like you don't have to talk about your music. You can talk about fucking video games. You can talk about the debate on Thursday, right? And like that one is
Oh, that's dating this.
right. You can talk about anything you want, and it's pretty much good to go content at that point, depending on what you're talking about, or like depending on what you're saying, I would say, because like sometimes it can be like very out of left field and be like this doesn't relate at all, right?
Yeah. So you do have to kind of keep it in. Well, also you want to be on podcasts that relate to what your music is as a whole. If your music is about like your struggle with mental health and things like that, it's like a therapy album for you. Hop on mental health or some therapy podcasts and start to talk to them like, hey, this is how I deal with it. Have that kind of conversation that could help your target audience who you want to relate to your music, because now you're having a professional potentially talk to you about it. That's awesome content where you use your music as the conduit to talk about what you want to talk about. And once it's so cool the things you can do with it.
It is.
Because there's no shortage of any content out there.
Right.
But also like don't sell yourself too short necessarily.
Yeah.
Definitely hit a bunch of smaller podcasts or content creators and see if they want to do something together with you. But also don't be afraid. If you think it's a really good fit with someone who's like mid-sized or larger, just shoot a shot.
Yep. Totally.
Hit them up. Maybe something will happen of it. Maybe it won't.
Yep. You never know.
Oh,
you never know if you don't try. So try it.
Exactly.
Try it. Yep.
So that's 10 things that you should be doing before you release your music. But hold on a minute. Or do we only have 10?
Bonus. We have 11. Ha!
It's bounds round.
Yeah.
What's number 11?
This is what we do. We do a top 10, and then we throw in the 11th.
One more, baby.
Extra credit.
It's that secret ingredient that we add in at the end to make the taste, to make the cooking so good.
Oh, that extra spice. Usually it's paprika. Sean, do you want to talk about this one? You're the one that is, has been working in this a lot lately.
Oh, about like preparing for live performances?
That'd be the one.
All right, I will tackle the live shows if you tackle the virtual events. That sound good?
I've never done a virtual event, but sure.
Okay, I'll tackle both of them.
Okay.
Man, my co-host is so talented. Anyways,
what the fuck?
Live shows.
Don't come onto this podcast.
No, I'm being serious.
Oh, thanks.
I'm being serious. He's a great guy.
Thank you.
Definitely work with him for music. We'll tell you his plugs at the end of it. Okay. Anyways, plan for live shows. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind it. If you're just starting off doing live, making sure you're prepared, having backups of cables, backups of strings, backup of instruments. If you're able to fit it and bring it to the show, things of merch, lights, things you can do to kind of make your show look more interesting. If you want to bring your own vocal mic, it's always usually positive. Just stick with the 58 and no engineer will have any problem with that. Helps with germs and yada yada. Fans for outdoor concerts, make sure you have water so you stay hydrated depending on where you're playing. All these sorts of things are very important while you're actually doing it, but preparing your live performances as far ahead of time as possible is incredibly important. Most venues that have outdoor venues that have shows during the summer will start booking bands between the months of mid to late November to mid to late February. Those are usually the months where a lot of these places will start booking. If you can book out ahead of time for like the whole summer and then throughout the summer start booking throughout the whole winter, that allows you to make a tour release. Even if it's all local stuff in one area, you can make a poster or start promoting it as a tour and put it all in one document. So that way you are now giving people a lineup of all the shows that you're going to be doing throughout the season. So they can start planning ahead of time of like, oh man, I can't hit this show next week, but 2 months from now, I'll be able to go that. So I'm just put it in my calendar now so I make sure I'm not busy. And then you also obviously want to promote each show before it gets to that show to build anticipation for it. It's kind of like a release in of itself. It's the release of the show. So all the steps you do beforehand also ties into the live side of it.
Yeah.
But if you are going to be releasing an album, let's say in July, and then you've got a bunch of shows lined up a couple before, and then like a whole bunch afterwards, you can have those shows before be the pre-release shows. That like, hey, we're going to be performing music that's not out yet. You can't even hear it yet. That makes it interesting for people to want to come and helps build anticipation.
Yeah, there you go.
Ties into everything else. And then afterwards, that also keeps bringing up the reminder of, hey, this music's out now. Go check it out, like it, all that stuff. We just did an interview with this person. Go check it out. It's a really easy way to throw out things that you've been doing to help promote it to a crowd of people who you know are already invested in you because they are there for your show.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't go out to live, for whatever reason, you're in a super rural area or you just don't have a full band or not comfortable performing on stage, there's also virtual events you can do. You can do a virtual live show and just stream it on Twitch or YouTube or whatever you want to do. And that way people can, make comments and do all that in the background while you're performing and have kind of a more laid back community kind of show. There are tools also that you can give people links where they can then click on it and vote on which song they want to hear next. And you can have your artists build your set list.
Yeah.
That's a really cool thing you can do for fan engagement. It also gives you an archive. If something funny happens, you can then chop it up, post on social media. You have it recorded. You have the interaction there. It becomes a content creation and marketing strategy in and of itself. So these virtual things can be really cool as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you summed that up pretty well. The only thing I would add to that is that another thing that helps you kind of prepare is taking your branding kit, right? And seeing how you can implement that on stage later on after your release, right? So we were kind of talking like apparel and clothing, is very important. So you can get that all synced up, ready to go. Come up with like a very thematic thing to kind of go along with it, or like we're going to play these shows like this or wear this during these shows, right? So on and so forth. This also helps you kind of prepare a live budget as well, because that should be separate from the release budget. That should be separate from the recording budget. You have a live budget, right? And then you can start preparing and picking up stuff for that, like strings, picks, sticks, whatever, skins, So I just want to add those few things on top of that. Otherwise, I think you summarized that perfectly.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 co-host.
Woo! I agree. Yeah, those are the 10 things that, plus one, that you should be kind of thinking about before you release your music. It all basically sums up as get your shit together before it comes out. Give yourself as much time so not only is there leeway to make sure everything is ready before you announce and before you release, but also gives you time to start planning things that help build anticipation and push it for that main release, be it a marketing campaign, be it live shows, whatever it may be, things you can do to build up and then continue doing afterwards. So much of what we do is content nowadays. There's always more and more stuff out there. Attention spans are incredibly quick. You have to be able to be on top of mind all the time. Otherwise, somebody else could possibly come in and distract your vans and get them going somewhere else. So having quick and easy ways that make content in and of itself or have other people make content for you are incredibly helpful in consistently putting stuff out to stay top of mind and to keep the interest of your fan base, especially if you are going the route of releasing an album. You're only going to have a big drop every 2, 3, 4 years. So you're going to need to have stuff to kind of fill in between then. Shots from your live show, interview questions, interactions with fans, behind the scenes stuff, write-ups, posts, interviews, all that kind of stuff is incredibly important to stay top of mind and stay interested. So all of this really goes together before, during, and after the release. But if you have time beforehand to make sure it's all cohesive and it's all together, it gives you a foundation to work from. It gives you stuff to do to build anticipation. And when you're done, now you have your tone, your branding, your foundation that everything afterwards can be built off of, which just makes it easier and easier to stay top of mind.
Well said.
That's why this is all important.
Well said.
Anyways, let us know the one thing that you're really good at and the one thing that you're kind of struggling with out of these 11 things before your release. We'd really be interested to know that.
Yeah.
If you want to let us know, you can message us at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com. That's the email. Or you can just respond if you're watching us on YouTube in the comments or DM us on any social media platform. We're on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Music Makers Cookbook. So reach out to us there. We'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you want to work with Brandon, where can they find you?
Well, you can find more about me and what I do at studio222recording.com. I do recording, mixing, mastering, all that good stuff. If you work on music, then I will probably work on it with you. Probably. I don't know. Send it my way. I want to hear it first. How do you do that? Well, you can fill out an inquiry on my website, and then I'll try to email you back as fast as possible. And if you don't want to go to my website for some weird reason, that's fine. I guess so. It's a nice website, so you should go there.
It is a great website.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's also got some great resources there.
Wow. Thank you, Sean. I agree too. Thank you. You can find me on all social media platforms, minus Twitter, at _Brandon McLeod or at Studio 222 Recording. I don't respond very well on those, but you can reach out to me there and I will try to get back to you the best that I can. Sean, how about you, sir?
Yeah, if you do folk rock or acoustic music that you want to have remotely mixed and mastered, you can contact me at swsrecordings.com. On top of that, if you want one-on-one kind of independent artist coaching, business coaching, basically what this podcast is, but more specified towards you and your career, you can hit me up through that as well. We can work together to take your career from where it is and just help accelerate it so you make the moves and have next steps planned faster than if you were just going through these podcast episodes and piecemealing something together. So you can reach out to me there, once again, through my website, swsrecordings.com. I also have social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, technically, and TikTok and whatnot. I don't post often there, but I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you want a quick response, though, please fill out the inquiry form on my website.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, with that all being said, thank you for listening to this podcast episode. Hopefully the ingredients were very helpful for you. Feel free to take off whatever you want from the shelf and leave what you already have or what you don't need. And from our kitchen to yours,
Bon appetit.
nice. We're cooking.